So, John, I want to go quickly because we want to hear from you. We've talked a lot about climate. We've talked a lot about energy. We've talked a lot about courage. And you've said your view is courage is contagious. And in your annual essay this year, you begin with a powerful observation. I'm going to read a sentence or two, but then over to you. You note, we are asking fundamental questions about what kind of country, what kind of world we want to live in. Long-held freedoms, the freedom to give, the freedom to invest, and the freedom to speak are in question. It is a moment in time when we must stand firm and steadfast in support of fundamental truths and commitments. People are asking that question truly every day in the most heartfelt ways. How do we make that happen? What do we do?
Well, Mindy, first of all, what a treat to be here at Ceres, and it makes my heart full also to see family, yours, and so many others who have come out tonight to support you. That is why we're here, is because you are a courageous leader, and you are getting so much done. So, Mindy, that is absolutely the case. If you have a job like mine, there are a whole bunch of people who will do whatever you ask them to do, especially when you have a checkbook as a foundation president, including on your team. And so I was getting on a plane and I said to the team that works with Ceres, I said, give me some things to read because I need to be inspired. I'm going to see, my great heroes in John McQuillan and John DeVillers and Mindy Lubber, all the people I've worked for. And they gave me one reading which says, now is the time for courage. That was my reading for the airplane. And Mindy, it just made me think of you and Ceres and the way that you have absolutely with steely resolve stared down, whether it was Jim Jordan or whomever it was who was saying that what you are doing is not consistent with the U.S. Constitution or whatever ridiculousness has been leveled at Ceres, and the way that you have absolutely shown the way to make sure that courage is contagious. And I would say in the field that we're in philanthropy, we are usually just treated really, really well. Like when I first started, I talked to somebody else who was in this business and they said, is this job as good as it looks? And he said, it's better. He said, you have told your last unfunny joke and you've eaten your last bad meal because that is how you're treated, of course, at all times. But all of a sudden, in this moment, there is an opposition who has decided that what we're doing is against the law, and has decided to say that if you give money, for instance, for climate or something that is not consistent with the federal government's game plan, that they're going to investigate us using RICO statutes, that they're going to think about making things not charitable if they're not consistent with the administration's kind of approved agenda. And I feel like you have been, for years with Ceres, basically saying we need a freedom to invest, and you have been leading campaigns of this sort. So about 8 months ago, as things were getting a little bit hot, strangely, for philanthropists who are usually treated so nicely, we were reading a little bit of Timothy Snyder, and if you've read On Tyranny, it's kind of long, On Tyranny, but do you know that there is a graphic novel? It's actually really short, doesn't take very long, so you can read it very, very quickly. Rule number 1, does anybody know what rule number 1 is of On Tyranny? Do not obey in advance, right? So we decided that in philanthropy, unlike universities, crumbling in too many places, law firms on their knees in too many places, we as philanthropists were not going to obey in advance. So we decided to come up with a plan called Unite in Advance. We're going to unite in advance, and it's really simple. We have decided that we are linking arms across ideology, whether we give to Catholic charities or Ceres or anything in between in the whole system, that we have two freedoms, a freedom to give and a freedom to invest, and that is consistent with the First Amendment. And we've been saying nothing but that, consistent. And Mindy, does it sound familiar? Where does it come from? I just added the freedom to give on the front, but I just took your freedom to invest, so that's what we're doing.
Well, that we like, but no, seriously, how do we make sure those freedoms are here for our kids or for us 6 months from now? We could never have imagined sitting here with each other talking about democracy being threatened and challenged. How do we make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, some of it is, I was a baby lawyer at Golston Stores once upon a time working for Doug Husted, and whether you think about like the Federal Society on the right or whatever the Constitution Society is on the left, whatever it is, like there was absolutely no question that the rule of law was what we all were working toward. In fact, it was much more the Federalist Society's thing, the rule of law. And the First Amendment, free expression, all of these things, I actually don't think it's that complicated. We need to stand up for the stuff that we believe in as Americans. And you were talking about Boston as the cradle of liberty and all this stuff. Like, once upon a time, 250 years ago, we decided, no kings, I'm sorry to your co-chair, but we decided that we did not actually want one man to decide our rules, right? We just have to do that. Like long-held American traditions, like the freedom of expression, the freedom to give, the freedom to invest, the freedom to do these things in a broad way that support people, that is all we have to stand up for. And I think we've forgotten it's not more complicated than that. And an astonishing number of people are actually not saying that out loud. And so I actually don't think it's that hard. And I think there are a whole lot of people who believe this, and it is a broad middle that will bring people together. If we do it around giving, just think about it as charity. If all we did, this radical act of doing what John McQuillan has done, to invest in this event or whatever he does through Triumvirate, like that will bring people together. That is seen right now as a revolutionary act. I don't think it's that hard.
I hope it's not that hard. Truly, truly. MacArthur has supported some extraordinary things to make sure that the freedom to speak, the freedom to invest, to the power of the media to stay independent. And Margaret Lowe, the head of WBUR, is here, who's fighting that fight every day. You've supported that. Are you comfortable? Tell me where your confidence comes from and how you choose these great things you're supporting.
Well, MacArthur Foundation has the great, great privilege for its whole history of giving to public media, and it's one of the two things we call an enduring commitment. And so we are honored to be supporting public media in this country. For those who do not know, there is exactly $0, zero federal dollars right now funding public media. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting does not exist after October the 1st. So Margaret and her people are funded not, still called public media, but no federal money, right? We are down to zero. Not even what was allocated before has been, through rescission, pulled back. So we have a moment right now where we do not have federally funded public media in America. We have to stand up and figure out how to do that and to refund it. So thank you for doing that. But again, I just don't think it's that radical to say we want to have, public radio for everybody in, every part of America, and to have the idea that that seems to be something that's one party's or another. I think, yes, we do have to work such that people who are voting to defund it do not see it as supporting their interests, for sure. We have to think about that. And public media, it absolutely has to do the introspection to say we are not the media of a party, but that's the work we have to do. We have to find something that brings people together across different divides, and I think that's one of the reasons that Ceres is so successful, and it's one of the reasons that you are one of the largest grantees of MacArthur Foundation, is because you are going out and finding entrepreneurs. You are finding people on the center right. You're finding people who have been doing this work for a long time to come together to do it in a way that serves all of the economy and all of the country. And I think we just have to find more places where we get brought together in that way.
As we're seeing local media shut down in small towns, medium towns, we're seeing certain large media outlets being bought by people who perhaps aren't looking at, how do we take this down the central road? How do we deal with that? You're funding some of it. What's your vision for the media as we move forward?
Well, it's a super hard problem, and I think one of the reasons that we feel so divided as a country is we don't actually have the same stories and the same narratives, and we don't actually agree on the same facts. And so what we see happening here, where we're coming back to actually agreeing that we have to invest in science because these facts do matter, and we do want good health care for people, and we do want, in fact, the good jobs that come forth. The work that my brother and others are doing here in the Commonwealth, I think, is an example of that. I think it's tied to the media. We have to decide that we are going to invest in public media. We do have to subscribe to our newspapers or whatever comes next, because all of a sudden we are not, in fact, investing in that universe, and we're losing 2.5 newspapers a week in America. So we have to reinvest in media in terms of just telling the truth. But I actually think if we think about it in a way that this is our project to rebuild the country at this point and to tell the stories in a more inclusive way, in a way that brings everybody together, I just think people are going to step up and do it.
Well, we sure are going to try, and we need you out there making that case. In your essay, and I will say, John, the question I hear from people, young people and others, more than anything is, what are the best things we could do to preserve our democracy? To even have the conversation that it's on the line seems incredible and ridiculous. In your essay, you ended it with this quote from Maya Angelou. Hope and fear cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Invite one to stay. You wrote, let us always invite hope to stay as we build our future together. Tell me what's giving you hope and how do we make sure that everybody leaves here tonight with just a little bit more hope that we can make it happen?
Well, of course, the big event is we're going to grab paddles and we're all going to get you over 750,000, right? And that's going to feel awesome when we've done it. And I suspect some people have in the background helped us to do that. So anyway, that's going to feel good because we're going to do something together for Ceres and for you, Mindy, and your leadership. But I'll end actually where you started with seeing, families have, across generations coming together. My daughter Emmy, who's over here, she said to me, Dad, are you going to start with a dad joke? Because I usually start with a really bad dad joke.
Well, let's hear it.
Emmy, I don't have a dad joke. No, we're talking about democracy and serious stuff. She said, well, just tell him about the protest that I saw the other day. I said, what protest was that? And Emmy is working in the sciences. She's working over at Children's Hospital Lab. And she said, it was a protest of people they're researchers in time travel. I said, what was their protest chant? She said, okay, here was the chant. It was, what do we want? What do we want? Time travel, time travel. When do we want it? Doesn't matter. Anyway, thank you, Emmeline, for the dad joke. See, it's very good. It's very good.
That's pretty good. Go, Emmeline.
I think her brother didn't like it very much. But in any event, I think the answer is coming together across generations and actually figuring out, what is the legacy that we have as families and as communities? And I think the legacy that you and your family have with your Friday night dinners through to the beautiful wedding that I saw pictures of with Jesse, I think of our family and my incredibly stubborn, hardworking parents who, I would say in terms of protesters, nobody has been to more protests than those two 80-year-olds, adding up to 160. And in this crazy time, and we've all been figuring out how to go forward and do our thing. And one day I said to my mom, am I making a mistake for being this far out there? And she said, son, no. She said, I can still feel the tear gas on my face from the 1960s. I know that feeling. And she said, get in the game. You go out there and you learn what that feels like. And I feel like that is available. If we need to feel the tear gas, let's go feel the tear gas. If what we need to do is give money because you've just made a huge amount of money selling your company and you're going to support the heck out of the local economy, if the point is you're going to stand up to the President of the United States and say, I have a right to the First Amendment, whatever it is that we need to do, that is the American story. It is the American legacy, and we absolutely can do it. So I am totally fearless and totally hopeful that we will do it. And it is because of what you do at Ceres and exactly what your team does every day to stand up for just basic freedoms and exactly the kind of country we want to live in.
Quite remarkable.